Welcome to Balancing Acts, the show for entrepreneurs who want to grow a profitable business without losing themselves in the process. I'm Linda Hamilton, a CPA, a certified exit planning advisor and coach, and a systemologist. Today, we're going to explore something most business owners don't think about as a strategic advantage: waste. But what if the waste you're throwing away is actually where your next opportunity is hiding? My guest today is Todd Thomas, founder and CEO of Woodchuck, an AI-driven platform transforming how construction and manufacturing companies manage wood waste, turning what was once a cost into a measurable asset. His company was recently named one of Fast Company's most innovative companies for 2026, ranking number 4 in the small and mighty category. Welcome, Todd. Anything to do with AI is a fascinating conversation, so let's dive in.
Thanks
Um,
so much for having me on.
yeah, it's great. And, I want to ground the first segment around like real world problems because, so many business owners are like all we hear about is AI, but we don't necessarily think of waste beyond it's a cost, right? And I'm a CPA, so everything is about, what is our cost? But you saw something different in efficiency, loss margins, and more importantly, opportunities. So for like what was it that you saw on job sites that made you think this system isn't working?
Well, it really starts from the energy side. We're in the world of AI, right? And the electrification of everything. We have a exploding need for more energy. So where can we get that energy? And of course, we're looking at all sorts of options. And people are trying to make um, good decisions around renewables and fossil fuels and really looking for how do we power this AI energy demand. Um, What we saw when we started to look at construction and manufacturing job sites is a massive amount of wood that's in those waste streams. Wood is a fantastic source of biomass for energy production. And the United States has a lot of wood resources. It's a plentiful natural resource in the United States. But right now, construction companies and manufacturing companies are paying to have this material thrown in landfills. Last year, the United States spent $2 billion to bury $1 billion worth of resources in landfills. Just crazy, right?
That is crazy.
So we built Woodchuck AI, which is an AI platform that identifies wood in waste streams and helps us separate that. So instead of sending all of that wood to the landfill, we divert it, we process it into biomass, and we deliver it to energy companies that use that to generate renewable power. So it works really well for the construction companies and the manufacturing companies because we are taking what they used to pay to go to the landfill and we're taking that and turning it into a valuable resource, and we share revenue back with that contractor or the manufacturer. We're able to reduce their waste cost. And as you kind of started in the intro, waste is just a cost of doing business. So if we can reduce their waste cost, that savings goes right to the bottom line. So it's really valuable for them. So we are reducing waste, we are reducing costs, and we're creating a reliable, renewable feedstock for more energy production.
That there was so much packed in that, just like how AI even got applied to it. So let's go back for a minute. So what, like, I don't know how long have you been developing, Chuck? I've been using AI for a number of years now, but kind of surface level. What sparked the idea to bring AI into this space?
So specifically, we use image recognition. And AI image recognition has been around for a while. It's not a new technology. It's really revolutionized a lot of different areas of healthcare. It's revolutionized or made massive impact on efficiencies within manufacturing. But waste hauling and material processing is a vertical that's fairly devoid of technology, so it's really ripe for disruption. So what we're doing is really taking this existing mature AI image recognition technology and applying it to waste hauling. So, and it works really well. The great thing about image recognition is you can train an AI algorithm to identify things that we can't see with the human eye, right? For example, if you've got a 2x4 that is penetrated with fire retardant or preservatives, you and I can look at that 2x4 and we don't know, it's just a 2x4. But the AI can be trained to recognize that. So as we are identifying materials and separating them, we can see which materials are clean and good for energy production and which materials are not clean and need to be used for some other purpose, like industrial products. So our promise to our clients is we're not going to send any of your wood to the landfill. We're going to use it for its highest, best use. So the cleaner the wood, the cleaner the resulting biomass. If it's clean enough, we can use it for remanufacturing, turn it into new particle board or new press board. Um, if it's clean enough, we can use it for energy production, which is primarily what we do with most of the wood. We use it to generate electricity. But if it's not clean enough for either of those, it still will be used for some type of industrial product, a filler or a topper. So nothing gets sent to the landfill. Everything gets reused.
That's amazing, completely amazing. So, for someone outside construction or manufacturing, um, I actually do have some business owners in my network who are manufacturing. One is in terms of creating a product like in place of baby wipes. It's a type of cream, but it is a manufacturing. I know another business that is manufacturing teas and selling them commercially and wholesale. Now, both of those business owners have said to me, well, how does AI help in our business and manufacturing? I am curious how you went from thinking, a logistics problem and the waste, what you could do with it, to we can transform this with technology. Like, how did they actually start other manufacturing types of businesses, maybe looking at AI possibilities?
Well, the interesting thing about AI, when you say AI isn't one thing, right? AI is actually tons of different technologies that all kind of get lumped under this AI umbrella. There's LLMs that can understand language and help us with emails and responses and all that type of thing. Image recognition is where you're analyzing images to identify things. Like you can think of autonomous cars use image recognition, right, to help them identify. If you get in a Waymo and you're going for a Waymo ride, there's the screen there that you can see, right? And the screen, you can see the computer identifying other cars and pedestrians and bikes. That's image recognition. Some people call it computer vision, but it's the same thing. So these technologies have been around for a long time. Um, so when you are really any business, construction, manufacturing, retail, um, I always think start with the problem. What is the issue that you're having that you're trying to solve, and let that problem define what the solution is. And maybe an AI solution will help you. Maybe it won't. It depends on what the problem is. AI is really good at replacing any repetitive function. If you have someone that's doing the same thing over and over and over, well, have the computer do it. Let AI do that for you. It's really good at taking over redundant tasks. And pretty much every business has redundant tasks buried in there somewhere. And if you can replace those redundant tasks with AI, it's going to allow your human beings to spend their time on unique, more difficult problems and hopefully make them more productive. I like to view AI as a force multiplier. So not necessarily replacing human beings, but allowing the human beings that you have to do more, better work by having AI do a lot of the legwork for them.
So that I'm glad you keep reinforcing that image recognition because I think a lot of us don't think of, that particular task. So that really does make a difference. And it's very innovative. So even though it's been around a long time, we're not hearing so much about it unless you're in certain industries, and we all know what amazing things there are in healthcare. But you've also been recognized as the most innovative company in the small and mighty, which is quite a feat because I read that you had less than 50 employees. That's pretty major, that's a major accomplishment. Congratulations. So, what is it that they saw in your approach that made it stand out, that made your company stand out?
Well, the issue of waste, trying to get value out of waste, that's not really a new idea either. People have been trying to do this for quite some time. There are a lot of companies that have tried to take waste and bring it to some type of recovery facility, a material recovery facility or a recycling plant, where they tried to then separate all those materials and get value out of them. No one's really figured out a way to make that work. It's very labor intensive when you commingle all of those materials, cardboard and plastic and drywall and cement, and just throw all that stuff together. It gets crammed together and dirty and mixed up, and it's very difficult to then cleanly separate all of it. So just nobody's figured out a way to work that work. And people have tried robotics and just tons of labor, and the math just doesn't work. So we're really taking a different approach. When we go to a job site, we don't put one big 40-yard steel box for everybody to throw all the material in. We put multiple boxes. We put a box for wood, a box for cardboard, a box for plastic, a box for metal. So each material has its own container. And then we label those with great big magnets that say this container is for wood only. And we do it in English and in Spanish and pictures to try to make it as clear as possible. But then the big difference is we put our image recognition system, or a camera, on the dumpster to really kind of turn it into a smart dumpster, if you will. So if someone puts the wrong thing into the dumpster, the AI recognizes it and lets them know immediately, hey, you just put a cinder block into the wood container. Please remove it. And that way, at the end of the day or the end of the week, we have a container full of nothing but wood and a container full of nothing but cardboard. And that's where you really are able to convert what used to be waste into valuable material. So a bunch of pallets mixed with plastic and mixed with other waste, that's trash. But if you separate out just the wood and you process that wood, by process, we chip it up into little wood chips, and we send it over magnets to pull all the metal out, and we send it through different sieves to get all the dirt and cement and sawdust out of it. So at the end of the process, you have good, clean little wood chips, which are great for all sorts of things: remanufacturing, energy production. A wood chip is pretty valuable when you have millions of them, right? So that's
Yes,
really good.
right,
Same
exactly.
thing with plastic, loose plastic, just loose plastic, that's trash. Loose cardboard is trash. But if you take that cardboard and you bale it up, 1,000 pound bale of cardboard is worth $40. A
There you
thousand
go.
pound bale of clear virgin plastic is worth $90.
And there
So if
we
we
go.
separate each of these materials and we condense them, now these materials aren't waste. These are commodities that can be monetized and become a new soft revenue stream for your company. So now all of a sudden, if you're a construction company, all of this material that you used to have to pay for someone to haul away for you, now we're recovering those materials. We're turning them into commodities that can be sold and generate revenue.
On that note, that is the premise of my whole show and my whole career as a CPA is helping business owners understand that, growth alone, if you're not profitable and sometimes you can't lower costs, what a very amazing innovation you have created there. In our next segment, we're going to talk about what Chuck actually does and how it turns into real business intelligence. How do people connect with you quickly?
You can reach us. Our website is woodchuck.ai. It's not woodchuck.com, woodchuck.ai. Visit our site. We'd love to hear from you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right.
If you want more episodes like this, you can watch Now Media TV live or on demand anytime. You can download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or Apple for nonstop bilingual programming in English and Spanish. And if you prefer podcasts, you can listen at nowmedia.tv. So, welcome back to Balancing Acts. I'm here with Todd Thomas, founder and CEO of Woodchuck, and we're shifting how Woodchuck actually works, or Chuck, sorry, the product tool is Chuck, because a lot of business owners are hearing AI right now, but they're not always seeing how it applies to real operations. And we talked a lot about that in the last segment, but let's go down into it a little bit more. If everything we were just talking about, you were transferring it into real world applications of using AI in your operations. So many are still at, it's a dashboard. or you're writing with it, right? You're doing marketing with the tool. And so with real world applications, would you say Chuck is more of an insight tool, or is it helping them make and execute decisions in real time?
So it's both. I'd say that I think the thing that's unique about Woodchuck, which we think is a big strategic advantage, is we are both an operation company and a software platform. We are both, which makes us really unique. So yes, we are actually out on the job site or at the manufacturing facility, separating materials, pre-sorting those materials, and then processing them. Turning wood into biomass or turning cardboard and plastic into bales that can then be monetized. So we're actually out doing that work. At the same time, the Woodchuck AI platform manages the movement of all of these materials and all of the logistics and tracks all of it. So beginning with from the first 2x4 that gets thrown into a dumpster, we capture an AI image of that. And we watch that dumpster get filled up and make sure that it's nothing but wood in there. Then when we pull that dumpster from the job site, we weigh it. So we get a weigh ticket and that's automatically logged into our system. We track exactly how many miles that wood is transported and what CO2 is generated when it's processed. And we track where it ends up. Does it end up in remanufacturing? Does it end up in energy production? And what happens with it there? If it's used for energy production, how many megawatts of renewable energy is generated from that wood? We track all of that, and all of that information is then available in the Woodchuck platform. So if you're one of our clients, you can log into Woodchuck AI 24/7 and see all of your metrics. How much material was moved? Where exactly did it go? And what was the value that was derived from it? And what we're finding is for our clients, construction companies or manufacturing companies, there's tremendous value in the operations that we do, turning waste into resources and driving down their costs. But for the end client, so say, if our client is Walbridge and they're building a data center for Amazon, Walbridge is realizing real waste reduction and real cost reduction. That's great value to them. But to Amazon, we're delivering them a detailed report of exactly what happened to all of these materials, the net CO2 that was avoided, the clean energy that was produced, and they can use this to report back to their investors, to the public. They can use it to prove that the sustainability goals that they have publicly announced that they are actually meeting those goals. And we provide them auditable data so they can prove that yes, this is in fact true. Because I think another thing we're seeing right now is there's a lot of greenwashing going on. People are saying they're doing things, but there's no data to back it up. They can't prove it. In a lot of cases, it's discovered later that well, they weren't really doing exactly what they said. That's, I think, the real power of Woodchuck is when we say we diverted 10,000 tons of wood and we generated 10,000 megawatts of clean energy. Well, we've got the data. Bam, check. We can prove it. Yes, that's exactly what happened to your materials. Here is the auditable data record that you can share with your investors and a news reporter and anybody else you want to share it with. This is legit and we can prove it.
And I think decisions made on data that you can verify are more valuable than anything when it comes to costs, when it comes to financials, and the goals, as you mentioned as well. So you're talking about your end clients. Is there what size companies, construction companies, et cetera, can work with you? Is there a range? Do they have to be large companies? What is the best fit?
Well, right now, we are seeing such a surge in AI data center construction. I mean, it's the biggest surge in construction right now, or maybe in the economy in general right now, right? We're seeing this massive surge in construction, and so we're seeing construction companies and utility companies and big tech companies really coming together to build these facilities. And when you build a new data center or a new EV battery factory as well, they actually produce more waste than your typical commercial construction because all of the servers that go into that data center arrive on site in six-sided hardwood pallets filled with cardboard and plastic to protect those servers. And right now, today, all of that material is going to the landfill. which is just such a waste because it's really valuable material. So if Woodchuck is involved in your project, we will divert 100% of that packaging material. The cardboard, the plastic, the wood, it's all really valuable materials that can be easily separated, diverted, and turned into value. So we're really leaning into the data center space and the EV battery factory space. So any big tech company that's building data centers or any big construction company that is serving those tech companies, those are kind of ideal clients for us right now. But that's not all we're doing. We also support a lot of particularly furniture manufacturers because furniture manufacturing produces a lot more wood waste. I mean, particularly if you're making wood furniture, right? There's a ton of wood waste. So that also is a great source of additional feedstock for energy production. So yeah, big tech companies, any of the big national construction companies, any big furniture manufacturers, we would love to work with you.
Okay, great. And I think that, as you're talking about that, I just want to remind people that it's reducing the cost, which would be 100% cost for getting rid of this waste material, if I'm repeating that correctly, and that when they're your customer, there's also a revenue share. So they don't just have the cost, but they recoup some of that in working with you. And I think I don't know if you want to go into a little more detail on that, but everyone's focused on cost.
Yeah, we firmly believe that in order for a solution to truly be sustainable, it can't just be environmentally friendly. It has to be financially sustainable. If it's not financially sustainable, it's not going to last. And therefore, by definition, it's not sustainable, right? The
Right.
money side has to work. So at Woodchuck, we're really focused on using AI to drive efficiencies, to reduce waste, and reduce costs. Reducing waste, reducing costs, driving efficiencies, those are pretty universally accepted. It doesn't matter where on the political spectrum you are. Everybody likes less waste, less cost, and that's really where we're focused.
And it's giving you a lot of data on what is going into the things you're collecting on site. Is there What kind of time is involved with getting started if someone wants to initiate a project with you?
Well, if someone has a big new project that they're getting ready for, or even a project that's already underway, give us a call. And depending on your geography, where you're located, if you're already in the Great Lakes area, we can mobilize within a couple of weeks. If you're outside of the Great Lakes, it might take us 30 days, 45 days. But what we're doing, it isn't really rocket science, right? Where we're sorting waste. We are using AI, which is pretty cool and slick and emerging tech. But at the end of the day, we're separating materials. To drive more value. So we can get set up and mobilized pretty quickly.
Okay, great. And I want to go back again to thinking about the companies that um, would like to investigate and bring in the AI imaging. Just AI imaging is is that your expertise, or did you partner with technology companies to build this application for you because that's the question my friends who own businesses with manufacturing are asking. Who do we work with in our last minute together?
So my co-founder and I, Dre Nisha Nelson is my co-founder. This is the third AI platform company that we've worked in together. So that is our area of expertise. And we built the Woodchuck platform from scratch. So all the code is ours. The data is all ours. The algorithms are ours. And the image capture system is actually a hardware, software solution that we built from scratch as well. So we're not reliant on anybody else's base code. It's 100% Woodchuck proprietary platform. Um, so yeah, we built it from the ground up because we knew what we wanted. We wanted it to be very flexible, and we didn't want to be reliant on someone else's base code. If you're reliant on someone else's base code, every time they make a change to their code, you have to waterfall that through all of your applications. And so we are not in that situation. We can adjust our system and update it as we like without outside influences.
Great, thank you. How can people connect with you?
You can reach us at woodchuck.ai. Visit the website, and there's an easy contact button there, and reach out, and we're happy to get in touch with you. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm Todd Thomas at LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find.
Next up, we're going to talk about how using a product like this, or even any, systems and things, affect profitability, efficiency, and hidden risks. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Balancing Acts. I'm with Todd Thomas, CEO and founder of Woodchuck.ai. And if segment two is about understanding the tool and how you could actually start incorporating it into your business, this is where we want to talk a little more about and go a little deeper into the impact. Operations and finance, which I think we can't repeat often enough because that is the hardest part for businesses to understand. And Todd, you mentioned something in the last segment about um, often companies put out in their reports they claim they're doing something, whether it's sustainability metrics, but there's so that covers so many areas of business where they believe they're doing something, it's not sustainable, it's financially crushing them, and ultimately doing things that are good for the environment, if you go out of business, isn't going to do much for you. So I wanted to go back over that again as to why Woodchuck really kept that in mind and is able to help them with both their sustainability goals, taking care of the environment, taking care of their people, making work more efficient, and also being sustainable financially for them.
Well, I think there's a very natural marriage between AI and sustainability. AI done well should drive efficiencies. It should make cleaner, simpler processes that are more efficient, and simply by utilizing them should help reduce your costs. The same thing is true of sustainability. Sustainability done well, I believe, drives efficiencies. And in our area in particular, should reduce waste and reduce costs. So the two of them have efficiency lined up perfectly. So if we are using AI to drive efficiencies, this can create financial benefit as well as environmental benefit, and the two go hand in hand. A lot of people think they want to do the sustainable thing or the environmentally friendly thing, but they always assume it's going to cost them more money. And honestly, in the past, it often has. It's been an added expense to do the sustainable thing. But at Woodchuck, we are very dedicated to making that an easy choice, where doing the right thing and reducing your waste also provides a big cost reduction. And in our case, it's pretty straightforward. We're taking what used to be trash, what used to be waste, and instead of paying someone to throw it away, we're sorting it and turning it into commodities that can be monetized. And as you mentioned, yes, we do a revenue share back with our clients. So if we turn all of their wood into biomass and sell it to a power company, and we turn all of their cardboard and plastic and metal into commodities and resell those and share that revenue back with our client, we provide a significant cost reduction. Say, on average, for a construction company, we will reduce their costs on a single construction site by over 30%. We have had some clients we've reached 50%. So it's pretty significant cost savings. And when you're in business, any business, hauling waste is just a cost of doing business. You have to haul your waste away. So if we can reduce that cost savings goes directly to the bottom line. So there is definitely a big financial impact there, a big positive financial impact in reducing your cost of taking waste and turning it into value.
I often say that there are a lot of silent profit killers in business, and for small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses, because there's so much to track. And 30% reduction in cost is very significant. And there's really only two ways to improve profit, and that's like raising your prices or lowering costs. And lowering costs is very difficult to do, especially when, it's just waste is part of a construction business, right? There's no way to escape that. Um, so I think when what are the risks for companies that don't have visibility into the type of waste they have and ways to manage it more efficiently.
Well, that's a great point, Linda, because most companies have no idea what's in their waste. I mean, we obviously work with construction companies all the time. And one of the first questions we always ask, okay, here's a new job site. How much waste do you expect? And what materials do you expect in your waste stream? And most contractors, even really big, well-established, very successful contractors, they don't know. They're like, I don't know. It's waste. For them, waste is a small line item. If they're building, $1 billion data center, their total waste cost might be 1% of their total budget. So they just don't think about it that much, right? But 1% of a big data center can still be millions of dollars. So we just recently finished a data center project where we actually reduced the contractor's waste hauling cost by $1 million. So again, on $1 billion data center, percentage wise, that's not a big deal. But $1 million is $1 million. We saved them $1 million.
Real saving, that's a lot, right? And I think that is the problem with saying, oh, it's a small percentage of the top line. But I would imagine if you went through all of their costs and expenses, there's a lot of things that are small, but when you add them up, they are significant. $1 million is a lot of money for any business, and it's real savings. Um,
And then
Go
there's
ahead.
future value as well, right? So once we've done a project for them and we've tracked all of their waste, at the end of the project, we can tell them exactly how much waste they had, exactly all of the individual materials in there, and what we did with all of those. So now when they have the next project, we don't need to ask them what waste they expect. We can tell them what waste to expect, which can really help them with the pre-construction stage and the planning stage. So now they know, okay, this job site is going to produce $1 million worth of waste costs, and it's going to produce, so many tons of wood and so many tons of plastic, and that can all be planned for, which creates even more efficiency on future jobs.
I also imagine that also affects their decision making in the pre-planning of what they're going to price the job at. Also, being able to look at their own profitability as well, the cost of labor, being more efficient has to help with labor as well. I would think. Um,
Yeah,
so you
that's absolutely true. We've had a couple of our contractors tell us they now view us as a strategic advantage in winning AI data center projects. Because not only do we reduce the cost, but data centers are all, the end client is always big tech companies, and they have big sustainability goals that they've committed to. So we're reducing their costs, but we're also providing these detailed sustainability reports that allow the big tech companies to prove that they have met their sustainability goals. So there's huge value there too. So yeah, our construction companies will tell us, yes, you are a strategic advantage in helping us win these big projects, which sounds crazy, right? We're just the trash guy, but we can help them win jobs because we're making a real impact.
and trash is a big part of of their cost, right? It has to go somewhere. Um, you were mentioning improvements, let's say, in bidding and reporting. How is that a competitive advantage for a company that is not using um, a product or a solution like Woodchuck?
Well, I would say most big construction companies right now, or manufacturing companies, most people in general, don't have a good understanding of their waste streams. They don't know how much waste they have. They don't know what's in their waste streams. They just know they get this bill once a month for their waste cost, and they pay it. And they've probably been using the same waste company for 10 years or 20 years, so they just don't think about it. But the reality is, if you track that, there's potentially a ton of value. I would tell you, we did a waste audit for a big retailer in Detroit recently, and they thought they were doing a great job. They had plastic bins and cardboard bins, and they had wood and they had their metal separated into different areas, and they thought they were recycling all of that, and they thought they were getting a really good price. And anyway, they were really proud of their program. Well, we did an audit on it. And the reality was they were using a local waste hauler. Um, and the reality was their cardboard was getting recycled. Nothing else was getting recycled. It was all going to the landfill. And they weren't getting a good price on it either. They were actually paying a lot to do what they thought was recycling, and the end result was it was actually all going to the landfill. So we came in and gave them our report on what was actually happening with their materials. And they weren't very happy, of course, to find out the truth behind that. But then we showed them how much we could actually save them if we really did recycle those and turn all of those materials into commodities and monetize them for them and create soft revenue for them. And it was a pretty substantial cost reduction for them. So even, and this kind of, so this blends a couple things we've talked about, right? It's execution and operations, but also greenwashing. And if we can use data to get to the truth of what's really happening to these materials, it can uncover real cost efficiencies, real execution efficiencies, and it can give you that really valuable auditable data to prove that the things you're saying you're doing, you're actually doing.
Yeah, and beyond that, the things that you believe your vendors are doing for you um, are, is really happening. And I've always said that when I work with business owners, even the smallest ones, you may think you have a particular problem with something when it's really just a symptom of a different problem. And when it comes to looking at all the things you just described, I think that um, especially smaller construction companies probably have a big issue. So I think in our next segment, I do want to talk a little bit about whether the smaller companies who are trying to grow or partnering with others or even serving as, you know, a tier two, supporting larger construction companies, what things they can do um, to help their own companies and cost and efficiency. Because, you know, right now, I think, you know, the imaging may be out of, you know, out of price range for some of the smaller ones, but there might be steps they can take on that on their own journey, business journey of building their business. And we have a lot of those business owners also listening. How can people connect with you?
You can reach us at woodchuck.ai. Come visit the site and let us go ahead and use the contact button, reach out to us. We'll be happy to get back to you. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm Todd Thomas on LinkedIn.
And next up, we're going to talk about the future of AI in operations and what business owners need to know. Stay with us. We'll be right back. If you love what you're watching, you can catch Balancing Acts and every Now Media TV show live or on demand on nowmedia.tv. You can download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or Apple for instant access to our bilingual content in English and Spanish. From business and news to lifestyle and culture, it's all streaming 24/7. Search Now Media TV and never miss a moment. Welcome to our final segment of Balancing Acts. We've talked about the problem, the solution, the impact, and now we're going to go back to the bigger picture and talk about Todd's book, Hyperscale, which is really covers everything we've been talking about and more. The mindset, the future, leadership, and so your book suggests a different way of thinking about growth. So, what does hyperscale mean for a business owner in tech and in operations?
So hyperscale is really looking at the overall energy ecosystem and how do we solve this ever-growing demand for more energy as people become more and more reliant on AI and it becomes ubiquitous and as we electrify everything the demand for energy just keeps growing. Um, and we're seeing that probably most acutely right now around the construction of new AI data centers. Um, but I actually think the end result will be a huge increase in the global capacity of energy driven by the demand for more AI. And so what we're really looking at in the book is what are our realistic choices? What are the best ways to power data centers? What's the best way to drive value back to communities that are supporting these AI data centers so that businesses and people can continue to get the value of AI on demand when they want it. And that really comes down to a mix of what are the different options in your local geography. Um, and I think we're going to see when people talk about energy growth, people are often looking for a silver bullet. What's going to solve our energy problem? And the reality is there is no silver bullet. It's going to be a all of the above type of solution where we're going to need oil and gas, and we're going to need renewables, and we're going to need nuclear. We're going to need all of these sources in order to power our really insatiable demand for AI. Um, but there's a lot of really great innovators and entrepreneurs that are working on this problem every day. And there's amazing new technologies that are driving efficiencies and reducing costs. And so it's a pretty exciting world to be in right now. And we're seeing this really interesting convergence of big construction companies and big technology companies and this sleepy old utility industry that's been around for decades and decades and decades without changing. Well, now all three of those are really converging around data centers, and it's really changing the way we think about power, and we think about the grid, and we think about how we grow these. So it's an exciting conversation, and that's what hyperscale is about. It's exploring all of that, and how do we make informed pragmatic decisions around these choices.
You bring it's very interesting that you're talking about communities as well. And I recall talking to another guest about energy and electricity, the need for electricity. I had an apartment in New York City and run my business in New York City for more than 30 years. For a lot of the small businesses, we don't think about data centers, right? And energy. What we think about is, I turn on my printer and when somebody vacuumed in the other room, it blew the power. And how they're trying in a city as big as New York with all these old buildings, they are they're trying to get you to take a 60-year-old building and make it more like it's a 10 or 15-year-old building. So for those listening about does your book talk about how do you get energy into communities that don't have enough and are concerned with them bearing the cost of needing these big data centers for bigger businesses, right? Because I think there's a disconnect there. What can you say about that?
Well, those are real legitimate concerns, right? If you're a community and someone wants to come in and put a data center in your community, um, there are going to be impacts, and so you want to make informed decisions and requirements in order for that to move forward. And I think that's a battle we're seeing play out in the press, right? Communities are pushing back and saying, "Oh no, we don't want those here." But the reality is, done correctly, a new data center can be a real positive for a local community. And I think there's a couple of requirements that you want. And I think one is you don't want a data center to be just a passive energy consumer off of the local grid because local grids, like you already mentioned, they don't have enough power. We already have problems, right? We have rolling blackouts in New York and Texas and California. The grids are maxed out. And so the search for where is there extra capacity in grids where we can stick a data center, those are few and far between. So I think the real solution is we need to require our data centers to become active participants in the grid. And what I mean by that is bring their own power on site, whether that's liquid natural gas or renewables or micro nuclear reactors. But a data center should produce power and become an active participant in the grid. So when the data center is producing more power than it needs, it can feed power back to the local grid. And this can actually reduce power costs for the local community. So I think as local communities are looking at data centers and trying to determine, yes, we would like one here, but these are the requirements. I think one of the key requirements should be a data center should bring its own energy capacity
Mm.
and be an active member of the grid.
So your book is titled Hyperscale. Does that have to do with scaling a business? Why that title?
Hyperscale refers to hyperscale data centers. So as data centers get bigger and bigger, when you start talking about gigawatt data centers, a lot of people will call those hyperscale data centers. So massive, $10 billion data centers that are sucking a gigawatt worth of power. And when you talk about AI capacity, people often talk about the power that it consumes. So when you're talking about the power for a data center, It's both the energy that that data center is going to consume and the compute power that it's going to produce. So you kind of use them as, as a single factor, a gigawatt data center. So that's a
Okay.
hyperscale data center. So if you're building a hyperscale data center in your community, that data center, in order to not be a drag on the local grid, needs to be able to produce a pretty decent amount of power. Um, but there's a lot of different ways to do that now. And again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but there's a lot of innovators out there building new solutions. One solution that we're seeing a lot of right now is um, hybrid solutions that combine kind of traditional fossil fuel options with renewables, particularly solar and wind and biomass. So, solar and wind are great, but the problem with solar and wind, or one of the constraints of solar and wind, is they are intermittent, right? Is the sun shining, is the wind blowing? If not, you don't have power. So, typically, when you build a big solar or wind farm, you also have to build energy storage, a big battery system to store that power so you have power when the sun isn't shining. But one of the interesting new hybrid solutions is instead of pairing a big solar farm or wind farm with a big storage facility, you pair it with liquid natural gas. So when the sun isn't shining, you crank up the liquid natural gas. When the sun is shining, you turn the gas off and you use the
Hmm.
solar power. That way you can use liquid natural gas and you can use solar and you don't have the added expense of a massive battery infrastructure. So it's really kind of a nice solution. And we're seeing lots of interesting combinations across solar and wind and biomass. So that's all really interesting.
Interesting, very interesting. And um, I would ask, for those listening, eh, sometimes you read about people who say, well, I don't use AI or don't want to use AI. I don't have a business or it's my family. How is this also important for those who are not seeing that benefit? We all have computers. Who doesn't have, there's iPhones, there's iPad. I have myself, I'm a device queen. I have so many devices. It's and they all need power. So how does this matter to those asking that question about is AI driving everything and they're not necessarily using it in the way we talked about earlier in the construction industry or manufacturing industry?
Well, there's a lot in that question.
Yeah.
First of all, everyone is using AI all the time, even if they don't realize it, right? You pull
Mm,
up whatever email package you like, right? Whatever it is you use on your computer, and you type an email message and you get a little notice of, hey, do you want to rephrase it this way? Or you get the little dotted line that says this phrase is grammatically incorrect and it'll correct it for you. Well, that's AI.
right.
Everybody's interacting with it all the time. So even if you're not proactively reaching out to find AI to use it, it's built into all of our technology at this point. So yes, you are using AI every day, no matter if you know it or not. Of course, if you want to be more proactive and really interact with AI has such powerful tools and it can make you a more efficient worker. It can make your businesses more efficient. So I'd say if you are not proactively searching for the right technical solutions to add efficiency to your business, your competitors are. And if your competitors are more efficient than you, then they're going to have lower cost than you, and eventually they're going to beat you. So if you are, I would say, particularly if you're worried about AI
Um,
taking your job or
and we're going
putting
to
your
wrap up
business
on
out,
that.
well,
I
embrace
don't want to
AI.
interrupt
It can
you
help
because
you.
that was a perfect answer to the question of we're all using AI and why should we care? But I want to make sure people know how to find you, how they can connect with you online, and to find your book.
Sure. So you can reach us online, woodchuck.ai, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm just Todd Thomas at LinkedIn. Or if you're interested in the book, my latest book is called Hyperscale, and it's available on Amazon. So just go to Amazon and type in Hyperscale, and it should pop up. And it goes into a lot more detail on basically everything we've talked about today.
Thank you so much. And innovation isn't just technology, it's seeing opportunity where others maybe see routine. Thank you for joining us and join us again next week for another episode of Balancing Acts.